Hey, I'm Randy, and I'm the Cheap Audio Man. Here at the Cheap Audio Man, we don't feel like audio equipment should cost as much as starting your own rabbit farm, where you slaughter the rabbits for their meat and their pelts. You make jackets or glove liners from their soft pelts. So today we're talking about the Elac Uni-Fi UB5 5.2, Elac Uni-Fi 2.0. There's lots of ways to identify this speaker. So grab a cup of coffee, sit down, and let's talk about the Elac Uni-Fi UB 5.2s or 2.0s or 552s. Okay. All right. Had a lot of reflection issues on my other glasses, so I'm trying to use these. The problem is they're a little bit too pumped up in the old magnification department. So, what are these speakers? All right. So, this is the second generation of the Elac Uni-Fi UB5s, which I own and I really enjoy. And on Saturday, we're doing a shootout between the two. I was excited to get this speaker. I was also excited to get the B6.2s. So this speaker, very similar to the first generation, three-way, 5.25-inch woofer. It's aluminum. 4-inch mid-range driver, aluminum. 1-inch soft dome tweeter. Mid-range and tweeter are concentric. Tweeter's in the middle. Okay. Rated at 46 hertz. I'm having a tough time pronouncing things today. 46 hertz up to 35K. 85 dB, 6 ohms. Okay. $600. MSRP. All right, let's just get right into it because I've got a lot to say about this speaker. I have this and this. But first, let's talk about our sponsor. Hank's pretentious leather-bound pads of paper. When you want to spend a whole bunch of money on some paper and look like you're more important than you actually are, grab a Hank's. It's available in a variety of colors. All right, build quality. First, let's see how big it is. Okay, this is Chewbacca. If you stand him up right next to the speaker, I don't know. The speaker is probably about the size of like the Jawa vehicle. You know, they roamed around the desert and picked up garbage and then sold it to people. Speaker's probably about as big as the Jawa transport and storage vehicle. So build quality is almost identical to the Elac WB 6.2 and 5.2. Similar, if not the exact same finish, okay? It's a fake wood finish, black, ash, whatever they want to call it. Same binding posts, front ported, plastic surrounds here. Yeah. A little disappointed in how it looks. But I got over that. I'm going to tell you why I got over it. Okay? So I'm going to make a disclaimer here at the beginning. Not that somebody sent me these. No, nobody sends me anything except for some companies that obviously don't watch my videos. This speaker is the best neutral speaker that I've ever heard. Okay? I'm going to talk more about why I feel that way, but after this thing broke in, and initially I was like, what is this? There's no way that this thing is worth $600. And I listened to it, and I broke them in, and I drove them overnight, and I had them playing. And I think about 4 days in to this, I was just had them on in the background, and all of a sudden the switch flipped. I was like, oh, okay, all right, well, they sound pretty good. They sound really good. And I kept listening. But we're going to get into all the different categories here. But if you get this speaker, be prepared to break it in for a while. Okay? For a good bit. All right? A few days. Soundstage. I did this in 3 rooms. Here in my office, which is a smaller room. In my living room, which is a giant room with very high ceilings. And in the upstairs playroom. That is a pretty big room still, but the ceilings are lower. But they're still like 10-foot ceilings. I think these are 10-foot ceilings too. I don't think I could touch the ceiling if I jumped. So that could be like a 6.5-foot ceiling. I'm just kidding. They're pretty tall ceilings. 3 rooms, 3 different experiences. And some would argue that that's going to be the case with any speaker. The thing that surprised me about this speaker is when it was in the biggest room, it sounded like the biggest speaker. It was, and I took a picture of these in front of my fireplace, and they just almost look like little tiny toy speakers, because just the scale of the room compared to the size of the speakers was quite different. Okay? They played just so big in the big room. They played so big in the medium room. And they played so big in my smaller office. I never quite had that experience with a speaker. Usually a speaker kind of is like, okay, I like this size of room. These didn't care. All right. So with Soundstage and imaging, Ron over at New Record Day kind of taught me something called crossing the streams. And it has nothing to do with an unlicensed nuclear proton accelerator on your back, as in Ghostbusters, and everything to do with getting them a little bit wider than what you would do, and then towing them in aggressively so the tweeter of the right speaker is pointing at your left shoulder, tweeter of the left speaker is pointing at your right shoulder. So a little bit more aggressive towing. Okay? When I did that, I was also sitting probably 4 feet in front of the back wall. The speakers were pulled out, I think, 24 inches. Okay? And it's a hard measurement because, you're towing them in, so around that area. Okay? Killing Strangers. I got to check the time because this is going to be long. Killing Strangers wrapped around me. Do, 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 and then it goes da 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 da. It was a 360-degree experience. A 360, not coming to the side, I mean all the way around me. And that's a function of the room and a function of where I was sitting, but it was still a very new experience for me. In the office too, it tried to go around me. It didn't quite get there. All right. The vertical off axis was incredible. I had my son sit down and listen to Chocolate Chip Trip by Tool. And if you've never heard that song, I highly recommend it. It's in my test tracks. If you want to try Amazon HD for free, click on the link in the description, scroll down to the bottom and click Try HD. You get 3 months for free, and I get like $1 or $2-ish. All right. Vertical off axis was incredible. The reason why I say that is because I just listened to, at ear level where you're supposed to have it, that the Tool song. Had my son sit down, and I stood behind him, and I'm listening to it, and I'm like, I'm not losing a whole lot here. And generally, when I stand up on a speaker, it drops way off. I mean, way off to where it just doesn't sound good. I wasn't losing hardly anything. which surprised the heck out of me. Probably the best vertical off-axis speaker that I've ever heard. It's not probably, it is. All right. And when my son was listening to it, he kept looking at me like in disbelief. And I said, just wait. There's more song. That song travels from the left to the right, back to the left. In that room, it was wrapping around me. Also, that song wrapped around me in the big living room. It was incredible. It was the best imaging I've ever experienced in a speaker, bar none. The Chain by Fleetwood Mac. The bass drum at the beginning, locked on, dead center. The center image is just locked on. And it's not just when you toe them in aggressively. Even toed out, so where they're not completely facing you, the center image and imaging in general is fantastic. However, when you toe them in aggressively across the streams, it takes it to just the next level. All right, I could keep going on. Hello, Adele, Hello was a three-dimensional experience. She was far behind where the speakers were placed at. The horizontal imaging on the speaker is incredible as well. Also, my son, again, was like, is there rear speakers going on? And I was running out of the integrated amp, so I was like, no, there's not. All right. We gotta speed this up. Let's talk about bass. All right, bass, full balanced, flat out unbelievable at times with a 5 1/4 inch woofer. When this first finally came to life after the break-in, I had to look down to see if the sub was on. It was not on. You can get more bass out of this, but since it's front ported, you have to really shove it against the wall. But I would argue it's plenty of bass. Intergalactic by Beastie Boys goes very low. Some speakers just cut that off, and you don't really get an idea of how low that song actually goes. Not on these. They give you that impression. They gave you that idea. At 46 hertz on the bottom end, I think this speaker, again, does as good of a job as any other speaker. The bass is also balanced, okay? So it's not bloated, because I listened to Highway to Hell by AC/DC, and that bass should be real tight and not like punchy at all. Like, and the great thing about this is when it was supposed to be deep and big, it was deep and big. When it was supposed to be tight, it was tight. Dun 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 dun, la 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 la. I got bass continued, intergalactic. Oh, Killing Strangers, perfect. Do 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 do. Perfect. Neutral, perfect. Big when it needs to be big. Let's talk about mid-range. All right, mid-range. New song that I've been listening to, There Will Be Time by Mumford & Sons. And it's also a duet with, I think, a South African singer. I've never heard his voice better. And the reason I say that is just not tonality, and it's just not accuracy. It's the detail. The detail in his voice was otherworldly for me, in my experiences. You could hear inhales. That's more to do with, air and stuff like that. But there were things that this speaker revealed, and this was on the Emotiva TA100. It's a $400 integrated amp, okay? It's not like I'm running a $3,000 amp on these. This is a $400 integrated amp, retail, all right? Male voices were full and balanced and as clear and detailed as I have ever heard. And that's surprising. It's just surprising. Alanis Morissette, Uninvited, perfect. Perfect. That song can have a bit of sibilance. Can sound somewhat veiled on speakers. Her voice, crystal clear. Shoot to Thrill, my big time mid-range song, perfect. Perfect balance between detail and body. Let's talk about treble. Going back to Uninvited, the piano on it was perfect. Tonality, presence, detail, in the room. Africa, cymbal decay, perfect. Centerman, hi-hat, perfect. Again, in the room. No fatigue out of these. This speaker continued to say, turn me up, turn me up, turn me up. And I was listening to it really hard last night, and I kept turning it up, turning it up, turning it up. Also, these aren't nearly as hard to drive as the originals. Which even the originals I didn't think were like horrible to drive. Anyway. And I just noticed, I'm like, ooh, this is getting a bit loud, because I tried to call my daughter to come in and listen to something. And I was like, okay. So I pulled out my little app, my decibel meter on my app, and I was pushing up, like bumping into 90 dB. And I don't care what people say, that's loud. You have to scream. So 83 to 90, I was right in that. And I was loud. And then it dawned on me, I don't have any fatigue. And normally that only happens with what I would consider a rolled off speaker on the top end, or a warmer speaker. No, not with this. Never experienced that before, listening at that long at those levels. Okay. What are my final thoughts? All right, we got to wrap this up. I would challenge any manufacturer to send me a speaker and put it on my components, my amp, my sources, in my room, and have something sound better at any price. As far as a neutral speaker goes, yes, if you're into warm speakers or whatever, fine. But a neutral experience with as much sound staging, as much imaging, and to have as much of an immersive experience while having the best sound that I've ever heard, do it. Send me something. Send me a $5,000 speaker. Send me a $1,000 speaker. Because I ain't going to go out and buy it because I have these. I also have crappy power supplies. I have crappy speaker cables. No. Bring it here, put it on my stuff that I tested this with, and make it sound better. Break in. If you get these speakers, you need to break these in for a while. Otherwise, you're not going to appreciate them. And you're not going to get the most out of them. Soundstage and imaging are the best that I've ever heard. Clarity is otherworldly and quite surprising for a soft dome tweeter. Okay. Build and aesthetics are substandard for a $600 speaker, and I say fantastic. I am so glad they're substandard, because they put all the money into how it sounds and how it behaves and the experience that you have with it. If you want a prettier speaker that doesn't sound remotely as good as these, then buy something else. This is the best speaker I've ever heard. Ever. And it's $600. That's pushing it on this channel and in my opinion, but it is 100% worth all of that $600. All right, I got to wrap this up. So, with that, I'm Randy, and I'm the Cheap Audio Man.